Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Good Boxing Podcast with your host, Josh Sias. Today, I have a very interesting episode for you. So, I'm going to jump right into this. If you're not subscribed to the channel, feel free to subscribe, hit that bell. It really, really helps the channel. If you like the video or dislike the video, feel free to leave a like or a dislike or a comment. Now, jumping into the episode. I don't know if you notice or know this rather. Ryan Garcia has completely changed his tune, and quite frankly, I'm a little shocked, and I really don't know how to take this. Evidently, yesterday, Ryan Garcia made a tremendously big announcement that his fight with Fortuna is no longer going to happen. He pulled out for health reasons and some sort of mental health reason. Now, look, I'm 100% privy to the fact that fighting's an extremely mental game. And look, if you're unhealthy, you get injured, something happens in training camp, things happen, and you can certainly pull out if you're not going to be able to perform to your maximum capabilities. However, Ryan Garcia, when discussing and kind of being vague about what's going on, kind of said it was a mental health thing and he just wanted to take some time off to kind of mentally heal and get well. Now, what does that mean? I mean, is he retiring indefinitely? Is he done fighting? Is he going to fight someone else? And that's kind of what I'm going to delve into in this episode, and whether or not what Ryan Garcia is doing right now is smart for himself, and if he'll ever be able to truly recover from bailing on this fight. Now, first things first, if you don't know who Ryan Garcia is, I'll be honest with you. If you're on the platform, I'm pretty sure you know who Ryan Garcia is. And if you're into boxing, you know that Ryan Garcia is one of the biggest stars in the 135-pound division, right? Ryan Garcia is probably the second biggest, actually third biggest attraction after Canelo and Manny Pacquiao. In terms of Instagram followers, Ryan Garcia has a tremendously big audience, especially amongst the Gen Zers and millennials. So if you're on Instagram, if you're on social, you probably have seen Ryan Garcia whenever you look at the hashtag boxing or in any sort of boxing video. And kudos to him. I mean, Ryan Garcia was a prominent amateur, but he wasn't an Olympian. He didn't have this storied boxing background. Sure, he fought in the amateurs. Yes, he did fight Devin Haney. He did fight other people that are pros now in the amateur ranks. But when you look at his career, the popularity came from something that was not really known to a lot of people at the time. Fighters really weren't marketing themselves on social media as well as they could have. And Ryan Garcia really capitalized that. He used viral culture, and his celebrity really helps him sell his fights. He sells a bunch of tickets, and mix that in with good looks, mix that in with Canelo, mix that in with just the perfect storm and perfect relationships. You get a fighter that is extremely popular. Now, Ryan Garcia is in a very unique position. He has this massive platform where he has an amazing audience, and now he's in a state of his career where he finally stepped up. Before, he was just a social media sensation. He kind of looked average sometimes in his boxing career. Yes, he had a bunch of knockouts, but they were against no-name opponents. So what did Ryan Garcia do to kind of solidify himself as a legitimate warrior? He did something similar to Andy Ruiz. In fact, he did it before Andy Ruiz. He paired himself with the pound for pound number one fighter in the world, the biggest name in boxing, right? Probably outside of Manny Pacquiao, and Canelo Alvarez. In doing so, one, you pair yourself with the biggest star in boxing. He can mentor you. Two, you can pretty much gain knowledge from arguably the best trainer in the game right now if you look in terms of awards, right? He's trainer of the year, and a lot of people feel like Eddie Reynoso with the job he's doing with Canelo, pound for pound number one, and potentially with what he did with the work of um in the recent fight where his fighter beat Miguel Burchelt. He Oscar Valdez shocked the world, and a lot of people didn't really know if Oscar Valdez could honestly beat Miguel Burchell. But in the fight, you saw the improvements that Eddie Reynoso brought to the table, and he was successful. So pairing yourself with Eddie Reynoso, the Canelo team, it seemed like a match made in heaven, right? I thought everything was going well. Then finally, Ryan Garcia stepped up to his first big test in January where he fought Luke Campbell. The fight was a little harder than he expected. Ryan Garcia actually got dropped early in that fight. He got his ass up off the floor and then proceeded to stop Luke Campbell, right? So everyone thought, wow, Ryan Garcia got up. He has grit, he has toughness. The clip went viral where Ryan Garcia gets dropped and then comes back, and like everyone really knows the story on how it ended. So seemingly everything seemed to be just peachy. Seemed like Ryan Garcia was coming into his own, and we truthfully had a star in boxing that could back up the platform and his massive audience. You had someone that was box office knocking a lot of his opponents out. He's sensational, has the following, can sell, and Golden Boy looked to have a golden goose. Then it seemed like the wheels were coming off. And I'm just going to give you a little bit of some precursors looking back in hindsight being 2020. There were some breadcrumbs that left a trail to this decision coming. And I'm going to be honest with you, I was a little shocked when it came out because truthfully, I have become a fan of Ryan Garcia. Do I think he's the best in 135? Absolutely not. Teofimo Lopez, Lomachenko are probably the best two and top two. Then you follow them up with Devin Haney, who I think arguably can be number two, but I just got to see him fight someone. And, you know, again, like a lot of these fighters are really good. They have tools, but you have to see how they do against the better guys. So I'm not going to anoint Devin Haney to be second or third, and he has that capability, but right now, I have him in the back of the pack. And I felt like Ryan Garcia really was a part of this budding class. He was a really, really good talent amongst very good prospects. So I got to sit here and say I'm a little shocked. And here are the breadcrumbs I was talking about. First things first, Ryan Garcia has an amazingly big audience, right? And when you look at a young budding career, I personally don't know how someone with such a big audience can perform at such a high level. I mean, truthfully, I'll be honest with you, on my Instagram just broke 1,200 followers or something like that. And in the beginning, when I had no one watching me, it was a lot easier to create content. It was a lot easier to just not really worry so much about so many people looking at your video, right? And right now, I'm not sitting here and saying I have a bunch of views, but now that I have a little bit of an audience, a little bit of a following, I really do feel obligated to make sure that the content lives up to that. So I can't really imagine what it would be like to be on Instagram where you have 8 million followers, you have 8 million people, some hating you, some people loving you. You have people giving you adoration and people just spewing out hate. I really don't know how that would feel. You have everyone looking at clips of you getting knocked down, saying like, "Hey, you suck." Oh, if Teofimo hits you with that, or if Tank catches you with that, I can't imagine how much that must feel. How that must make him feel, and it must not really feel good. Right now, all of a sudden, Ryan Garcia, if you don't know, he actually have an episode. I'll actually release that. I have the Ryan Garcia story, the Ryan Garcia special, where I kind of go over his whole life and his life in boxing. I'll actually upload that as well this today, so you can get a little more of a background. But if you don't know, Ryan Garcia was a prominent amateur, right? And it's a lot different when you're fighting for the glory and the accolades and the love of the sport, and then all of a sudden it becomes your profession. All of a sudden, the you have to live up to whatever other people want and not what Ryan Garcia wants. It's no longer just, hey, we're boxing for fun and trophies. Now you're boxing for money and legacy. And you have a bunch of people looking up to you. The pressure must be astounding. Then you link up with pound for pound number one in the world, all of a sudden your audience becomes even bigger. Now you carry the Canelo team. You carry the pressure that comes with being linked with the pound for pound best because now it's boom or bust. Either you fail with the Canelo team or you're successful with the Canelo team. But regardless, Canelo's already an established pound for pound number one. You are nothing but potential. And if you don't live up to your potential linked with the best fighter in the world, it's going to look bad on you. You pretty much have more to lose than if you were just with your old trainer and you're just a busted prospect. They're going to think you're broken. They're going to think they couldn't fix you. And if Canelo and the Canelo team can't fix you, arguably, who can fix you? Now, I don't agree with that. Sometimes a trainer just may not be a good fit, but in this case, it seemed to be working. Ryan Garcia is fixing a lot of the holes, and it seems like Canelo is doing a good job mentoring him. However, then things started to kind of come off the wagon a little bit, and this is what I mean. Ryan Garcia recently, a few months ago, mentioned that he was going to fight Manny Pacquiao, right? Well, you know what? Let me even rewind further back. Prior to the Luke Campbell fight, he made an announcement saying that if he beats Luke Campbell, Tank Davis is next. And then once he beat Luke Campbell after the fight, he said, "Hey, Tank, you're next. I'm going to knock you out in 2 rounds." Now, when he said that, the boxing world just went a buzz. They ran with the sound clip, that clip of him getting dropped and him getting back up and finishing him off. People linked, "Hey, if Tank hits him with that, he's not getting up. Oh, Tank will beat you, no problem." And this war started between Tank and Ryan Garcia. The Five Kings were buzzing. Everyone was just talking about the 135 division. And after Teofimo Lopez shocked Lomachenko, it was just fantastic. Everything was seemed to be falling into place, and we seem to be having a throwback kind of division. But all of a sudden, Ryan Garcia changed up. First, it was Tank. Tank, oh, is Tank gonna fight me? Is Tank gonna fight me? The Tank fight should happen. And then it just kind of went to deaf ears, right? I don't know what happened. Then it was supposed to be Devin Haney. That didn't happen. And then randomly said, "Oh, God is good. I'm gonna fight Manny Pacquiao." And when he said the Pacquiao fight, like, God bless the kid if he gets the Pacquiao fight because you got to give up Tank in order to fight Pacquiao. Like, you would be ridiculous not to take the Manny Pacquiao sweepstakes when you win it. Why? Because Manny Pacquiao arguably gives you the biggest payday in boxing. But it kind of didn't make sense. Like, Ryan Garcia at 135 just started, and then you're going to go up two weight divisions possibly or meet at 140 to fight a fighter that has just so much more experience than you. And I think that's a horrible fight for Ryan Garcia in terms of money and financial sense and notoriety. And I mean, your legacy, you fight Pacquiao, of course. Get that payday, get that money, man, because you don't know when you're going to really make money like that again. Truthfully, I mean, look at Adrian Broner after the Manny Pacquiao fight. He never really made that kind of money again. And look at Mayweather. Maidana and Mayweather. Maidana kind of just got lucky and ended up getting two Mayweather fights because originally they were trying to set that up for Broner. Broner ended up beating, Maidana ended up beating Broner and winning the Mayweather sweepstakes. I remember they were trying to put Broner and Mayweather in a fight that would have been massive at the time because he was supposed to be the next Mayweather, etc. But that's neither here nor there. So Ryan Garcia has this amazing platform, like I was saying before, just to kind of finish my thought. Had the biggest win of his career in Luke Campbell. Everyone's talking about Ryan Garcia. Everyone's talking about 135. And then everyone's talking about Ryan and Tank. And then it becomes Ryan and Pacquiao. And I was scratching my head because the fight doesn't make any sense, right? So they're like, Pacquiao's gonna fight him. Oh, I'm fighting Pacquiao. I'm fighting Pacquiao. Then you find out Ryan Garcia has a Gatorade deal. All of a sudden, all of these big deals are coming out. He started a podcast, right? The Ryan Garcia podcast. He's in videos with Jake Paul. He's in videos with Taylor Holder, who I'm going to actually touch on in another video, who's going to be boxing, this big TikToker. You see him just linked with so many different personalities, and you see him doing a million and one things. So now, instead of just being the big Instagram boxer, now you're a podcaster. Now you're on the Mike Tyson hot boxing podcast. You're going around doing all of this promo. You're on Twitter. You get banned. And it just seems like things are just spiraling out of control, in my opinion. I don't know Ryan Garcia. I've never met the kid. I've never spoken to the kid. And I personally would love to interview him to hear more. But I'm just being honest with you, looking on the outside in, being so young, I can't imagine you being that spread at such a young age. And then on top of that, you have all of this pressure that you're just not equipped for at this age. I know when I was 22, 23, I would drown in a glass of water when I had to multitask. I can't imagine having a boxing career, being a full-time podcaster. I mean, even releasing content on a daily basis is rough. Doesn't matter if you have a content team or someone who's in charge of doing all of that, you're editing, etc. You still have to put everything together. You still have to get the content, speak about certain things, and be present, or your content's not going to be there. So this kid is so young. He just had the biggest win of his life. He has more eyes on him than ever. How does he cope with it? So Ryan Garcia kind of goes quiet. No one knows who he's fighting. You hear about Fortuna, you hear about Linares, you hear just rumor after rumor after rumor. And all of a sudden, he says he's going to make an announcement. Now, when he said he's going to make an announcement, I was sitting here saying, okay, is the Pacquiao fight going to happen? But I'm hearing, hey, Pacquiao is going to fight Terrence Crawford. So I don't think the Ryan Garcia fight's going to happen because Crawford, Pacquiao makes a little more sense, or even Mikey Garcia and Pacquiao makes a little more sense. But we find out he's fighting Javier Fortuna. Okay, you know what? I'm not too mad at the fight. Originally, all right, you're not fighting Pacquiao, you're not fighting Linares, you're not fighting Devin Haney. At least you're fighting someone who has a pulse. Javier Fortuna is no scrub. He's not the top, but he certainly will test them. And maybe he's trying to prepare himself for that Tank fight, like I had mentioned in my video before. Fighting lefties, you really got to learn the style. And you have a new trainer still. You're still new with the Canelo team. You're still learning. Fine. Do it. No problem. But then things get even trickier. Not too far off, Ryan Garcia decides to call off the fight. Now, in boxing, I had mentioned this earlier in this video that mental stability and mental focus is pivotal. If you're going through certain things, I mean, look at Teofimo Lopez versus Masayoshi Nakatani. He didn't look like himself, even though we found out later that Nakatani was no joke and he was not a scrub and it shouldn't have been a show out performance. But he didn't look himself. He was having family issues. He was having drama within his family, and you saw it in the fight. Now, Ryan Garcia has pressure and pressure and pressure on him. He has a kid now. That was something that was out there in the open. There was drama with him and his girlfriend. His fan base kind of turned on him for being a bad boyfriend. Then all of a sudden you're with Canelo. You're in that mess because now you're attached to the Canelo team and everyone's looking at you to be the next Canelo when you're 22, 23 years old. It's a lot of pressure. I can't imagine you training every day without feeling anxiety because there's no more time to develop. You've been anointed the next one when you're in the Canelo team. Now Ryan Garcia got dropped. He looks exposed. Now you're hearing talks about him ducking Tank because he said Tank was next and he ended up not fighting Tank. Then he looks like a joke because now he's not fighting Pacquiao. So people are opining on that, saying, oh, why are you saying you're fighting Pacquiao? There's a clout chaser. And then you fight Javier Fortuna, which is a good fight, in my opinion, a fight that Ryan Garcia certainly could win. And then you pull out of it. So while I think Ryan Garcia can certainly beat Fortuna, what's going on in his mind that he feels like he has to pull out in order to fight Fortuna? I mean, to pull out from fighting Fortuna. I don't know. And his answer of mental health, like, I get it, but I don't think you realize when you're a professional, I personally understand where you're coming from because if you're not focused, you can potentially get knocked out and ruin your career overnight. But you got to understand, optically, you just make yourself sound like you're scared or you're a duck if you say something like that. Like, hey, I'm just not going through it. I don't want to fight. It's a very young response for something. People have to go to work every day when they don't feel like going. Your life can potentially be going down a downward spiral, and people really don't want to hear about the kid with the big following, seems to have the perfect life. You get to train and do something you love for the sake of, hey, I just don't feel like doing it. If you're injured, okay, no problem. And now, again, I'm not saying that this is a right perspective. I understand where he's coming from. But at the same time, again, you have to play devil's advocate and acknowledge the other side of things. At the end of the day, the people that make you the star, the people that give you the platform are the ones you're disappointing when you just say, like, hey, I don't feel like doing it. So if you really were in that rough of a mental space, maybe you shouldn't have announced the fight. Just kind of take a break. Hey, I'm going on vacation. I don't really feel like fighting. I understand that. But now you signed for a fight. You made an announcement. Fortuna is out of a payday. You're ruining that guy's life because with COVID, he hasn't fought in a long time. So now he's out of work. And truthfully, the fans are disappointed. They want to know what's going on. And I get mentally, you may not be prepared for it, but a lot of people aren't going to try to hear that. When you're a boxer, you're a fighter for a living, a lot of fighters going in and don't feel 100%. I mean, quite frankly, I don't know how many fighters really feel happy about going in the ring when they finally get in there. They're nervous, you feel a bunch of different things. However, part of growing up and becoming mature and being an excellent fighter is being able to perform under all circumstances. One thing you could say about Mayweather, one thing you could say about a lot of other fighters is sometimes the deck is stacked against you. You have people doubting you. You have all these dramas that are occurring in your life. I mean, you look at the Cotto fight, Mayweather was going to jail. Just to use Mayweather as an example. I mean, Teofimo had to beat this guy when his whole family basically disintegrated. Diego Corrales had to fight Mayweather, and sure, he lost, but he was going to jail as well. People have had to fight when their parents die. People have had to fight when their grandma dies. I mean, look at Daniel Jacobs. He got in the ring and yeah, he lost, but he went through with it. And that's kind of part of being a professional. And you got to realize don't sign the contract if you're not going to follow through. And while I understand Ryan Garcia personally, you got to understand that these are things that people are going to say. However, the mental health aspect, and I just want to actually give credit to Ryan Garcia for acknowledging the fact that mentally he's not engaged. I'm glad that he's saying and making it okay or trying to make it okay. Some people are just going to always be unhappy regardless of whatever you do, right? You can be the best person and give up all of your life to please people and then people are still going to talk trash about you. So it doesn't really matter, right? I I think Ryan Garcia is actually doing a really good thing here. Gen Z, millennials, especially self-care, mental health have become very big focal points of health in general and in life. And I think the fact that Ryan Garcia is taking a step towards making it okay, like, hey, look, I'm having this mental health issue. I don't really feel like dealing with this right now. I'm the one getting in the ring. And if I mentally feel like I'm in a place where my mental health is going to take a hit, if I go in there and potentially ruin my career, I'm going to pull out. I personally understand him and actually have empathy for the guy. I hope Ryan Garcia is okay. He's a young kid, a young stud, and he has a very promising career. Potentially, I got to sit here and say he is going to develop some haters for this, but at the end of the day, haters are going to hate regardless, right? So doesn't really matter. I'm actually kind of proud of the kid for being self-aware because ultimately he's the one that has to get in the ring. He has to take the walk. We can say, "Hey, I paid this ticket. Hey, I liked him. I followed him. I bought his T-shirt. I supported his podcast." Whatever you say doesn't matter at the end of the day. You don't own Ryan Garcia. Ultimately, Ryan Garcia has to be comfortable with Ryan Garcia to go in that ring. So I really don't know where he goes from here because this can be a built-in thing now where promoters may not want to sign a fight with him because, oh, hey, is he going to be okay to fight? People are going to start questioning his heart. Are they going to say, hey, did something happen with that Luke Campbell fight that maybe he doesn't want to fight anymore? Is he soft? Another thing, too, they can cite is Ryan Garcia has been talking about retiring at an early age. I don't think he wants to fight for a long time. And maybe that's why he hinted at that. Like I said, there were some breadcrumbs. When you see his uncertainty on who he wants to fight and him saying that he wants to retire at a young age and him saying that like sometimes he's not having fun and it's not all fun and games anymore like the beginning, it kind of gets interesting and I wonder more or less where this is going to go. Do I think he can actually come back? Absolutely. I mean, the kid has such a massive platform and if he wants to fight, I can certainly see anyone lining up to fight Ryan Garcia if the money's right and everything's going okay. So I'm kind of glad that he's taking this stance, but at the same time, he has to understand that people are going to have their opinions about this. So I just kind of wanted to touch on this. Ryan Garcia is apparently retired indefinitely. You don't know when he's coming back, but I think it's going to be a little break. Kid has a lot of pressure on his plate. I think he has talent. I think he's a really good boxer. But at the end of the day, he has to go in there and perform. And if mentally he's not in it, I don't see why you would want someone who's disengaged and not interested in boxing trying to perform for you. I know it's not perfect. He has to realize that the world and you won't always be happy. You won't always feel 100% healthy. And that's what it takes to be great sometimes. You have to be able to perform under those conditions with all the lights on, looking at you and the scrutiny looking at you. And people are going to have the opinions that they have. But I hope he figures it out because he's a young kid. Let him be a kid, let him develop. But at the same time, he also has to understand what comes with that. And let's see how he deals with it. Well, that's the episode for today. Let me know how you feel about this topic. I totally get whatever position you're in. Mental health is extremely important, but at the same time, people are going to talk shit regardless. So they're going to talk shit about him not wanting to fight Haney, not wanting to fight Fortuna. They're going to say he's scared, doesn't have heart, etc., etc. All of it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. I just hope the kid is okay, and I hope we get to see him further. So feel free to leave a comment, leave a like. If you're on Spotify, feel free to hit that follow button. On Apple, leave a review, a rating, and thank you so much. Be well.